Here are musicians that were gospel artists. At number 15, we have Wizkid. Before Wizkid was shutting down stadiums in Paris and bagging Grammy nominations, he was just Ayodeji Balogun, a shy, skinny kid in Surulere, Lagos, who sang in church. At just 11 years old, he was already part of a small gospel band called Glorious Five, a group he formed with church friends. Their goal wasn't to chase fame, it was to glorify God through their songs. His earliest recordings weren't flashy bangers, they were gospel tracks, born in a home where his father, a devout Muslim with a strong Christian influence from his mom, supported his son's early interest in music. Back then, he went by the stage name Little Prince, a nod to the dreams of a kid who already saw himself on the throne. Even after his full-blown transition to Afrobeat, Wizkid's spiritual roots were never truly buried. Tracks like Ojo Elegba reflect deep gratitude, almost like a whispered prayer in a beat. Lyrics that appreciate grace, blessings, and divine favor still echo through some of his verses. But the real switch happened in 2011 when Superstar dropped Holla at Your Boy. Wasn't a gospel track, it was a pop explosion. The game changed overnight. That album didn't just introduce Wizkid, it launched him. The church kid had stepped out, but he never completely walked away from that foundation. Today he's a global icon, but sometimes you can still hear the choir boy in his melodies. At number 14 is Rema. He didn't just pass through the church, he lived there. He was that energetic kid, always ready to jump on the mic, rap scripture with fire, and sing with conviction that could move a congregation. He discovered music at just 11 years old and was part of 3 different gospel groups in the church. For Rema, the turning point came during a performance at his church's Lagos headquarters, but it wasn't a smooth sailing. His mother supported him, but money was tight. No funds for the university, no studio budget, just raw talent and a dream. He formed a duo with Alpha P called RNA, and their gospel-leaning single Mercy even made waves on Channels TV. Mercy, but life hit hard. Rema left Nigeria for Cotonou. From there, he took a bus to Ghana, hustling on the beach to make ends meet. That hustle paid off. By 17, Rema had saved enough to buy his mom an SUV, a full circle moment for a woman who has never stopped believing. Back in Nigeria, he started remixing Afrobeat tracks, putting his spin on songs that were already buzzing. One of his Instagram freestyles, a take on the Prince's Gucci Gang, went viral. The Prince saw it, reached out and introduced him to Don Jazzy and the Marvin Crew.
Gucci gang, and I wake up every morning feeling like the man. I'm not talking about the money just to get the rent, and I take out
everything changed. By 2019, his single Dumibi was everywhere. The bounce, the vibe, the hooks, Rema had arrived. His music now leans into Afro trap, R&B, and dancehall, but you still find spiritual shadows in his lyrics. He's never hidden his faith, he's just taking a different path to share it, even though it was weird making the transition at first. Next, at number 13, we have Alpha P or Prince Will Emmanuel. He's something of a mystery compared to his childhood friend Rema, but one thing is clear, his roots stretch back to the church too. He started writing songs and performing in the choir as a preteen. His debut track Mercy, the same one he did with Rema during the RNA days, was soaked in gospel energy. Their bond was more than just music, it was shared roots. RNA wasn't just a random duo, it was 2 kids molded by the same gospel soil, dreaming of bright stages. After RNA split, Rema joined Marvin and Alpha P carved his own path. With help from Bizolo Sikoya, a former Marvin A&R executive, Alpha P signed with Universal Music Group Nigeria, now called Universal Music West Africa, in 2019. His sound was smooth, melodic, and Afro R&B. Songs like Paloma show off his vocal chops, but there's been no documented return to gospel. Still, when an artist starts off in church, it lingers, even if just in how they phrase a line or carry a note. The church gave him the first mic and he's been building ever since. At number 12, we have Simi. Before she ever made anyone smile with her signature soft vocals on Duduke, Simi was a full-on gospel girl. We're taking full-fledged church singer, performing at small events and concerts where she would earn between 5,000 to 10,000. Her debut album, Ogaju, produced by Sam Clef, dropped in 2008 and was strictly gospel. But life happens, and while Simi never lost her faith, she made a bold shift. She wanted more out of music, not just in terms of finances, but creative expression too. It pushed her into secular music, and by the time Thief dropped in 2014, she was already making her mark in the Afro-pop and R&B. Even with the fame, Simi hasn't forgotten where she started. Her music might be on mainstream airwaves, but that quiet gospel fire hasn't gone out. At number 11, we have Don Jazzy. Before the beat drops and the studio magic, Don Jazzy was just a boy who could play drums. His uncle brought him to London in 2000, where he started playing for a local church. That was the start of something big. Don Jazzy never really released gospel music under his name, but the influence is crystal clear. His knack for reading harmony and soul in production has roots in the choir stalls and drum sets of church. He mostly stayed in the secular scene, shaping legends like D'banj and producing iconic tracks from Maven Records. But in 2014, he made a rare gospel appearance on Ayo Vincent's single Serve the Lord. It was brief, but enough to remind us where it all started. He's still currently the CEO of Maven Records and is still responsible for the rise of the new waves of Afrobeat stars like Rema and Ira Star. At number 10, we have Tiwa Savage. Before she became Afrobeats royalty, she was a church girl. At 11, her family relocated to London and she joined her school band. The gospel foundation isn't just part of her bio, it shows in the emotional texture of her voice, just like in 2006 when she participated in the UK edition of The X Factor. Even though she eventually leaned fully into secular music when she returned to Nigeria, Tiwa has never been shy about showing her spiritual side. In 2020, during the pandemic lockdown, she went live on Instagram and gave fans something unexpected, not a club banger, but a full-blown gospel worship session. It left many wondering why she never dropped a gospel album. The girl can sing, and church folks took notice. Tiwa is currently one of the leading female Afrobeat artists and one of the top in Africa today, but her voice always ties to her humble beginnings at her school band. At number 9, we have Chidinma Ifile. Her story flips with other artists. Unlike others who left gospel for pop, she went the other way. She was a chorister in her younger days and even served as a music director at her local church, but fame found her in 2010 when she won Project Fame West Africa. That victory opened the door to a secular career with massive hits like KDK and A Mini Bola. For nearly a decade, she ruled the pop scene, racking up awards, charting at number 1 and collaborating with heavyweights like Sound Sultan. But in 2021, Chidinma shocked everyone. She returned to her gospel roots, publicly declaring a new chapter in her faith and music. She released her first gospel single, Jehovah Overdue, and signed with Easy Concepts, home to Mercy Chinwo. An EP new season dropped later that year, followed by Psalm 16 in 2022 and The Road Best Traveled in 2025. She didn't just dabble in the gospel, she dove head first. Her voice now carries testimonies, not just talent.
There is nothing you cannot do. Protocol breaker.
At number 8, we have Timaya. Unlike many of his industry peers, Timaya didn't walk the gospel to secular path. He came in loud, raw, and unapologetically real. His breakout single, De Mama, was a gritty storytelling of the Odi massacre, and he positioned him from the start as a voice for the people. Interestingly, his earliest professional work was with KC Presh, and together they dropped an album. But Timaya was never the gospel guy in the equation. Once he broke out as a solo artist in 2005, his lane was clear, secular, streetwise, and full of bounce. With many hits over the years, Timaya showed he could blend Afrobeat, dancehall, and culture into a sound that was purely his. He can also adapt to different eras where many other artists fade.
My God, girl, the way you grind up. Anytime I see you, I blind up. The way you handle that.
By 2012, Upgrade took things even further, and over the years, he racked up awards, 4 Headies, 2 Afrimas, a Nigerian Music Award, and an NEA award. But he still made spaces for songs like Hallelujah, which, though not traditional gospel, felt like testimony, raw, real, and reflective. In a way, that's Timaya's version of spirituality, something he has done in the past. At number 7, we have Banky W. If there's one artist who embodies the full circle gospel journey, it's Banky W. The man who gave us Lagos Party and that infectious yes or no who didn't just stumble into the spotlight. He started off in church, leading the choir as a teenager. Back in high school and even earlier, Banky was already singing in church, fine-tuning his vocals and learning the language of worship. But fame came wearing a different outfit. When Banky W broke into the Nigerian music scene, it wasn't with a hymn. It was with soulful R&B tracks that made him the ladies' favorite and the guys' go-to for love song dedications. He co-founded EME Records, introduced Wizkid into the world, and for a while, he ruled the charts with feel-good love tunes and party anthems. But deep down, that church boy foundation never really left. In 2018, he turned heads again, not with a new single hit, but with a surprise political run and an open embrace of his faith. He teamed up with the Lagos Community Gospel Choir to perform Blessing Me live at This Present House Church, and by 2021, he dropped The Bank Statement, a gospel project that sounded like a man realigning with purpose. Songs like My Destiny featuring Brookstone and the Lagos Community Gospel Choir were among them. At number 6, we have D'banj. With D'banj, it's more about glimpses than roots. The Coco Master has flirted with gospel music here and there, just never enough to say he was from it. He and Don Jazzy once dropped a gospel snippet, Serve the Lord. His career took off under Mo Hits Records, also with Don Jazzy, and the hits that followed were anything but gospel. Dongolo, Suddenly, and of course, Oliver Twist were pure secular gold, flashy, flirty, and full of the larger-than-life energy D'banj is known for. But every once in a while, he'll drop a spiritual-sounding verse or perform with gospel acts like Testimony Jaga, blending praise with his signature swagger. It's almost like D'banj keeps one foot near the altar and the other one on the dance floor, or never fully walks away from the gospel, but never fully steps into it either. At number 5, we have Zlatan Ibile. His big break came with street hop energy that had more to do with legwork than liturgy. When Zanku dropped, Zlatan didn't just deliver his sound, he created a movement, but he always had that energy, one that can make the crowd vibe no matter the song he's singing. Out of nowhere, a video surfaced sometime back. Zlatan, in a moment nobody expected, was seen leading praise and worship. Not mumbling along, actually leading. Hands clapping, voice raised like he was back in the church setting. It was raw, energetic, and left fans wondering if this was just vibes or a glimpse into a side of Zlatan the public never really knew. Gospel was ever part of his professional music story. His career is deeply rooted in street culture from Bolanle to Lagos Anthem, and that's the lane he's own. But that viral praise video added a layer that a small but surprising reminder that even street kings might have once known their way around the hymn book. At number 4, we have Johnny Drill. He didn't just happen to stumble upon soul music. He was raised in it. His father was a pastor. Church was a lifestyle. And in the midst of all that gospel foundation, Little John started singing. Not because he had a plan, but because it was part of the rhythm of his life. He didn't get into the spotlight immediately. In 2013, he auditioned for Project Fame West Africa, the 6th season. That was his first taste of mainstream attention. But even then, you could tell he wasn't trying to be loud or trendy. Johnny was soulful, tender, reflective. He carried that same energy into his breakout years with Mavin Records, Nigeria's premier music powerhouse. Songs like Wait For Me and Count On You aren't gospel by classification, but you'd be lying if you said that you didn't feel spiritual. There's a certain reverence in his melodies, a gentleness. That gospel DNA is still in every note. Johnny Drill still performs several gospel songs here and there. He once sang at the Elevation Church, leading the Bethel music group. Next up at number 3 is Wade. Her name is Aituade Irobe, but famously known as Waje. She didn't just grow up in the church, she grew up under the eyes of one of Nigeria's most iconic religious figures. As a teenage girl in Benin City, she was belting gospel songs in school, and none other than the late Archbishop Benson Idahosa noticed. He saw something divine in her voice and decided to support her education. That's not small talk, that's God's favor showing up in a big way. But life came at her fast. Waje got pregnant while writing her final year secondary school exams. She didn't tell her mother for 5 months, and when the church found out, they banned her from singing in the choir. Imagine that, the same voice once cherished suddenly silenced. But if anything, that heartbreak deepened her sound. You can hear the resilience in her notes. Her big break came in 2008 when she featured on P Square's monster hit Do Me.
If you do me, I do you. Man, no go vex, step on the dance floor. So won't you give it to me? I go give it to you.
That track wasn't gospel, not by any stretch, but it kicked down doors for Waje. She followed up with songs like I Wish and Coco Baby, crafting a career out of pure vocal power and emotional truth. But even as a secular career soared, something kept tugging at her soul. In 2022, Waje dropped Unbroken, a full gospel album. No flashy features, no hype machine, just Waje, her God, and a sound that felt like a return. She didn't do it to trend, she did it to heal. She called the project a personal journey, an offering of gratitude after all the ups and downs. The choir may have banned her once, but her voice found its way back home. And number 2, we have KC. Kingsley Okonkwo, KC to the world, wasn't just singing in the church choir as a kid. He was basically born into music and grew up in a Christian home. This curious combination that probably explains KC's flair for mixing the sacred with the sensational. He met his longtime partner Presh in church. Together they formed KC Presh, a duo that spent over a decade performing together. Their big break came in 2002 when they won the Star Quest Talent competition. It gave them a platform and they ran with it, dropping albums, touring, growing their brand. But it wasn't until they split in 2011 that KC found his real groove. In 2013, Limpopo dropped, and just like that, KC was everywhere. The song became a cultural anthem. Clubs, weddings, street corners, everybody was singing it. He leaned into the flashy lifestyle, the designer clothes, the wild music videos, but deep down, the gospel roots never left.
Baby, please give it to me. I'm going crazy.
And in 2021, KC made a bold move. He switched lanes, releasing Cultural Praise, a gospel-tinged album that mixed high life with Christian worship. He said it was intentional. After 2 decades in music, he didn't want to be stagnant. Sometimes for me, I have to move it around, switch it around, he explained. But it wasn't just a creative decision. He talked about a personal encounter with Jesus. He said his family had always encouraged him to embrace gospel music. So he did. And in doing so, he reminded everyone that growth doesn't mean forgetting where you started. And number 1, we have Spyro. He has one of those voices that makes you stop and smile. His 2022 hit, Who Is Your Guy, went viral for all the right reasons. Catchy hook, feel good vibe, and wholesome energy. But underneath that mainstream success is a church boy through and through. He started singing in the choir as a little boy. Gospel wasn't just a genre, it was his world. And while his most popular songs might be secular on the surface, Spyro has made it clear he's here to spread the gospel through his music, even if it doesn't come wrapped in a typical worship packaging. In interviews, he talks about striking a balance. He's not running from his faith, he's not afraid of a label, gospel artist, but he's also navigating a complex industry, one where faith doesn't always get prime billing. Still, he's found a way to stay grounded. His message is clear, his purpose is firm, and his fans are riding with him.
All my life you have been faithful.